He'll come back and Lloyd and recognize him as a girl and if we see that, we know where we are. Because a girl can, they're twins. Fire her, so.
Okay.
I don't know.
Good evening and welcome to the City Council Conference meeting of Tuesday, August 27th, 2024. Two items on the agenda. The first of these is continued discussion regarding the resolution R 2425-34, postponed to City Council's last meeting of August 13th, 2024, related to the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority's Access Program. You have a copy of that. Brenda just gave out a copy of that resolution that we're talking about.
That is as it appears in tonight's agenda.
All right. Anybody have anything to discuss about that?
Staff's here to answer any questions if we can.
Okay.
I would mainly like to hear from Councilmember Nash. As far as, have you talked to Pike Off OTA, Amy Serrato, Bob Norman? Are they in agreement with this? And what do you feel? Because a lot of this is from your input, so.
Well, this resolution still contains a lot of the language from the OTA and their partnership language, even if the words partnership have been struck out. And so it's the consensus that anything that's been in any way tainted by the OTA, that there's no reason that we should entertain it.
So you're still against this, and you do feel like Pike Off OTA is still against this?
Yes, and
Yes.
I don't know if this is an appropriate time to bring up a motion that I plan, just as a,
Do we need to do that out there?
well, I mean, I'm not gonna be motioning now,
okay,
but just
I got
giving a heads up.
Yeah,
Okay, so I plan on making a motion to amend this to replace it with the original, resolution that I wrote about a month ago before the fun activities of the last 3 or 4 weeks. And, so I think that's pretty much where we're at, is that it's still unacceptable to have the OTA's, language snuck in there and just kind of injected into, what should be a resolution to protect our interests. And, and on principle, we shouldn't be standing behind anybody else's words but our own. But
this one's finished. Take a minute to read it. Again, refresh.
I didn't grab one for me.
so I get to work on my public reading. Right? Read this.
These are together?
No.
No.
They're two separate.
Get rid of this one, do this one,
No,
what is?
this is the one that's on tonight's agenda.
Okay.
This is the one that Councilmember Nash is going to bring up as a motion in the meeting. I guess my question is, I know you're saying that some of the language in here isn't exactly what you want. This resolution is at least the combined efforts of council and staff and everybody else, and it was after many hours is pretty much was the consensus that I understood that we had that we were going to work with. My personal opinion is this is kind of regressing back to where we started several weeks ago, whatever number of weeks that was. Of course, you have the right to be able to put anything on the up for a motion, as long as you got a second, and we can vote on it. Okay. Other comments from council? Yes.
So, working through the process, you get a second, then it becomes a public open comment period. on this resolution, we go through those, then we get to comment and then vote. Okay. Just reiterating.
I do have a question about, should it be two motions to amend, one for the title separately, or?
Since it's not an ordinance, you can do it all at once. You don't,
Okay.
we haven't adopted anything by title. So.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one more.
Yes, sir.
Rick, for number 2, whereas the city of Norman does not welcome or endorse the intrusion of the turnpike built by the OTA into our community. So what's that do for us?
It's just an expression of your opinion.
I mean, the whole thing's our opinion.
Right, it's a resolution, it's an
So-
expression of this council's opinion with regard to the proposed turnpike.
Anything more on that question? Item number 2.
Yeah, just real quick, the main difference is trying to compare these two, from a legal standpoint, what might be your opinion is different about these two resolutions. One main point that I see in the proposed one that's on the agenda is the, the request from OTA for us to participate in the development of East-West Connector and South Extension Turnpike projects, thereafter to maintain those projects as city streets after. And so, I know there's some other differences, but is there anything in your opinion legally that's, stands out as being a little different about these?
Well, our understanding of the purpose of the resolution to begin with is to give the Turnpike Authority an indication of some of what the city would like to see constructed during that process. If you don't have a resolution that has those items in there, my understanding is OTA is not going to construct them or consider constructing them. So this is just an opportunity for council to give the OTA council's opinion as to some of the amenities that they would like to see constructed in conjunction with the turnpike. And if you don't have that in there, they're not going to consider it. And we've talked about a lot about the reasoning behind that issue, and to me, it just comes down to the issue of if there are public improvements that are constructed that the city is going to be responsible for, they want to know that they want to see some sort of a commitment on the front end, because they don't want to go through the process of any right of way constructing those improvements, and at some point in time in the future have the city say, we're not going to accept those.
Do we run the risk of them taking more because we ask for stuff?
In terms of right-of-way,
Yes.
we do not believe there's additional, and I'll look back to Mr. Sturts, who understands those right-of-way dimensions.
Like if we're asking for another frontage road on the other side, if we're asking for interchanges at certain spots, does that mean they need to take more?
I think they start off in their generic footprint with all the assumptions as to the biggest need that would include all of those potential requests. So these infrastructure elements would not require them to go reassess and expand their right-of-way strategy going forward.
But anything that we put in writing that we request, we are committing to then take over maintaining those.
Yeah, it would be, realistic to think that the OTA would not attempt to maintain wetlands into perpetuity or, multimodal pathways. And typically the frontage roads do wind up becoming roadways to be maintained by the public entity in which they're developed. And we've seen those examples all over Oklahoma to date.
Okay. Okay, that's what I have for now. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
let's say, for example, we don't want to take over the responsibility for maintaining the access point at I-44, or the one at 120th Avenue Northeast, that we don't think that that one's even necessary, or half of the access points that they told us to ask them for aren't necessary. If we told them no, would they not build them?
That's undetermined at this point, but I don't think they're gonna expect us to maintain the interchange.
So we
They
don't
expect
know.
us to change the road that went underneath at those locations, but not the actual turnpike interchange. And the way that I've seen it drawn so far, it's gonna be slip roads, not like a big clover leaf like what we see in other locations in town. Primarily, it's the other amenities, the frontage roads, if we want the 10-foot path, saying that we will maintain those in the future.
Did you say the plans that you have seen?
On Access Oklahoma. If you want
Okay.
to try to trap me, that's okay, but it's just on Access Oklahoma is all I've seen.
Alright. Just wondering. So if we ask them not to build these, they'll build them anyways. So why does this feel like a trap?
Does it feel like a trap? Doesn't feel like a trap to me.
Usually when somebody asks you to do something, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. You think, oh, that's harmless. Comes back around to haunt you. And I think that's where a lot of concern is with adopting somebody else's words, especially when that somebody else is the Turnpike Authority.
Anything else? All right. Item 2. Discussion regarding the resolution imposing a temporary moratorium on the issuance of permits for large projects until July 1st, 2025, or until the enactment of a new ordinance placing additional requirements on such projects, whichever occurs soon. And we've got new mayor. Councilmember Nash, this was your resolution, is that correct?
That is correct.
Would you please explain it to us?
Absolutely. So this Turnpike project, this is a development project that's beyond any scale or scope of projects that we've seen before. And as such, we simply don't have the rules, the ordinances, permitting process on the books to handle this kind of project. If anybody's asked, like, why didn't we ask for this for any other projects? We've literally never seen a project of this size before until now. And so, part of the challenge here is ensuring, and I've explicitly told Mr. Rick that this is explicitly not to be used as a weapon for regular, just ordinary development. It should never be triggered for anything that's below a large project like the Turnpike. And to that end, I've got to list the criteria. And a heads up on this one, there are going to be 2 amendments to these criteria. The first is the requirement to meet 2 of the following criteria. I'm going to increase that to 3. And then on bullet point A, from 161 to 640 acres. But what this resolution is going to be doing is directing Darrell Pyle, city manager, to put a temporary moratorium on the issuance of building permits for projects that meet these criteria, this newly defined large project criteria. And that's to hold us over until either July 1st or an upcoming ordinance that fully specifies additional layers of studies and just investigative processes to make sure that this project isn't going to cause our floodplains or stormwater any kind of harm. And so you can read through these criteria, and they're not perfect. They're thrown together relatively quickly. I've spoken with Richard McCowan, going over these, asking him for his input on what's the largest projects he's ever had, because, and the final ordinance, I envision having, getting developers together to make sure that we're all in the same room and can verify that the set of criteria that we're putting together would have never triggered for any of their past projects or any projects that they can envision in the future, because this isn't intended for normal, regular development. And it's not intended to be able in any way to be weaponized against the arena, which is another fear of mine. And I believe that area is about 80 acres, so it's definitely going to be far below even meeting one of these criteria. But we need to have some additional oversight on these large projects that have the potential to completely and fundamentally change the way that our city operates and can sustain itself. Displacing this amount of earth, constructing this this much, say, infrastructure in our watershed. And the requirements that I intend to, and the studies that I intend to put in the ordinance will be based heavily on the NEPA studies, NEPA requirements, converted to a municipal level. We can't just tell anybody to do a NEPA study. It's a federal study. And likewise, we can't tell somebody to do a NEPA study and then tell the federal government to have their experts review it. But what we can do is we can create a set of ordinances that in effect duplicates the requirements of the NEPA study, but then instead of, like say, an outside expert that reviews it, we have an ad hoc committee, much like the TIF, statutory TIF committee, that'll review it, that'll hold a public hearing, and at the end of it, issue the record of decision, which would then be required for the building permit. But to get the breathing room to put that together, because it's not going to be able to be thrown together overnight, it might take 2 or 3 nights. We've got this to hold us over.
Hence the date of July 1st, 25.
Yep. So whichever happens sooner, then we get the ordinance put together, hammered out. We have community, just informal community involvement to make sure that we're not accidentally going to put together something that can harm the current business community or the development community. And then we'll put it in front of council and see if we can then get it adopted into our ordinances, and that'll then we'll have it clear cut. This is our expectations for these kinds of projects, what kind of studies that we expect you to do, and we want to see that you've taken every single thing into account to ensure that we're not going to have a huge problem on our hands.
Just a couple things. I would really like the roughly 18,000 people that live in Ward 8 to be able to look at this and provide feedback to me before I have to vote on it, first of all. And then the second thing, it's until July, and I haven't been able to go through all this, but July 1st, 2025, unless there's a new ordinance placing additional requirements. So if we find that we don't need any of these requirements, we can't take them out, is there a way to if we vote on it yes tonight, and then everybody in Ward 8's like, what are you doing? We should take this out and blah, blah, blah. With that language in there that it has to be an additional requirements, is there a way to change this, undo it? I don't even really know who I'm asking my question to, if it's city manager or attorney.
I think I see what you're saying. I had envisioned the ordinance, its set of requirements taking the place of these requirements, not adding on top of them. Is that what you're?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, but I guarantee there's attorneys in town that'll read it wrong too.
I hadn't even considered that word. That's a good point. Do we have an answer for that one?
Yeah, council could take action, potentially at the same time you wished to adopt an ordinance to just spell out plainly that this supersedes the resolution number, whatever the next number in order would be.
Councilmember Peacock?
Thanks. Yeah, so I've, had a stance in these meetings for the past month or whatever. We've been talking about this subject that you can't rush good policy. And I think there's a lot of good stuff in here. I think there has some real legs to it, but just like every other piece of policy we talk about in this body, it needs to start in a committee. It needs to start, in the beginning of the process and actually get vetted throughout the way, get buy-in from stakeholder groups, get buy-in from outside groups. Really tease out a lot of the things that, I know you're cognizant of. I appreciate you acknowledging some of the pitfalls potentially. I would like to tease those out in a actual policy process, not here tonight. And so, I think it would be my vote to go send it back to a committee and take a hard look at it that way.
I'm going to echo Councilmember Peacock. I was just looking at how many committees this city has and how many commissions, and there's a commission for everything. I think this is way too broad. I will not support any moratorium that's going to affect everybody. I don't. We have some major projects that are looking at us, such as the Weather Museum. That's a hundreds of $1 million project. And a lot of other big companies. We're trying to invite major corporations. We want to make this a town that's going to keep on growing and keep on thriving and keep on prospering. And this right here is going to tell anybody who wants to do a major project in this city, we're not even going to listen to you for a year. Completely against it.
Yes. I'm not too concerned with 20 properties being taken by a weather center potentially, but I do think this would be good to have further conversation, like in Community Planning Transportation Committee, just because it seems like to have the best fit there. I will echo Councilmember Peacock. And having worked on ordinance revisions, those aren't quick. So like once you commit to something and then have to come back to it, it does not go as fast as you might think it would. So yeah, I would like the chance to kind of flesh it out and see what's actionable and maybe game out like, will we be preempted? That's the other thought that I'm having.
Thought that as well.
If we adopt something and it doesn't go through the process of getting buy-in, what are the ramifications later down the line? Because if I am to support this in the future, I would like to know that we get to keep it and use it. And it's not hamstringing us in the future. That's it.
I do have similar feelings of that. I would like to see it run through CPTC. If that's the appropriate place, I'd be happy to do that. So we can flesh out some of this stuff before we put it in front for a vote. But Daryl, are there any projects that come to mind that would be impacted by those stipulations?
I'm not sure of the status. The only one that I think on paper really consumes a big portion of that may be preliminarily platted at Destin's Landing.
That doesn't include eminent domain though, so.
Correct, and I don't think, even development opportunities along Highway 9 on perfect swing frontage, I don't think it's anywhere near that big acreage-wise, so.
It's a square mile.
Yeah.
And I was thinking the equine, we've been talking about that equine, whatever you're gonna call it. So, but that won't be 640 acres.
I don't envision us using eminent domain for that.
Oh, I hope not. I don't think that wouldn't be worth it.
It'd be a hard justification, I think. So, yeah, I definitely agree with comments that good stuff in here, but I'd like to vet it out more in committee before we put it on the floor and vote to put it in action.
And
And
council,
knowing what what unintended or whatever may consequences could come from it.
So depending on council's actions this evening, what staff would do is initiate a conversation with the Water Resources Board, whatever the acronym is for State Water Resources Board, and DEQ as it relates to oversight on the elements that are sought in an ordinance. Just to ensure that if we put it in an ordinance and we're not the oversight agency, if they're gonna rely on the Water Resources Board or DEQ for that activity, they may not look at our ordinance at all. They just may go right with a state agency for oversight and go forward with us or without us.
I think that's what concerns me most about what's on here is I don't know that we have any enforcement over anything that the state does either way, unless they're partnering with us, and that's not really enforcement. We can dictate all we want, but I don't know that they can't just say go away, no matter what, because they have control over what they do. There's nothing wrong with this. The other thing that and I know you spoke to it and you say it won't hurt the arena, it won't hurt all those things. I just worry 10 councils from now, somebody has that, reads it, and something happens. If it's not well crafted, it could definitely be a quagmire to get it fixed, as Councilmember Grant says, because then we go through all the discussions of it. Did you want to speak to it?
I do support the moratorium and do like it and everything that is in it, but I also respect the process, and so I'm basically neutral.
Anything else that, on this?
Just curious, want to clarify the proper procedure. If we wanted to postpone this tonight, we just postpone. There's no, we don't have to reject it or anything, we just postpone.
No.
Yeah, since there was no public notice, it's not an ordinance, we don't have, it doesn't have to be to a date specific.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure. Okay, thank you.
So this could potentially be on our next study session. That way we can start going through the process of really vetting this.
Possibly that'll be, you're looking at towards the end of September because you're using your 2 study sessions in September for the special meetings for the entertainment center. So, I'm trying to remember what we're talking about. It's
CPTC.
a pre-conference.
It's the 4th week. See ya.
That's a little too-
I'll just have to see what's on there, and it may be something we can be bumped around for your pre-conferences, like on September the 10th.
So it'd be September 26th.
That's it. By the time when I keep on running that next in my head,
So that way we'll have time to vet it and then get it on the agenda for September 10th. Is that what I'm hearing you say? No.
That's not what I said. Next week you have the entertainment district special meeting on the 3rd. And the 10th is the following Tuesday, so we could put it on that conference agenda. Is that what you're saying?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
fine.
saying.
I thought you meant on the regular meeting. Yeah, we can stick that on the conference topic.
I still think I'd rather see it start in CPDC.
I would agree.
That would be my wishes too, that it be
Start
vetted at a committee and then come to us to study session via that route.
Discuss both moratorium and ordinance.
Sure.
As separate things, but the same thing.
Same discussion.
I would think, and I think CPTC is the place to do it.
We can put it on the September meeting.
Fine.
If the chair's comfortable with us moving some stuff around, we'll make it so.
Anything else from council? All right. We have